Greg from Painting Tabled, and I'm here today to talk about and show you how I've been painting my harpies for my Beastman army. So, as you can see, I've got a couple of them lined up in front of you, including one that's just been primed. And I started with a white primer, which is something I don't normally do. And the reason is I decided to paint these models primarily using washes. Not exclusively, but primarily, as you're going to see. And so it's important to start with a white coat because the washes are really going to be the ones that are putting all of the color into the model. Normally, when I prime a model black, I put, like a heavy foundation or base coat paint down there to apply the color, but in this instance, we're going to do it sort of in a different way. So what I've got on my palette, which you can't see at the moment, is some dark sepia wash. This is made from Secret Weapon brand, and I like this better for this task than the Citadel sepia wash. I'm not sure what the new one is called, but I find that it goes on a little heavier and it's not quite as thin and runny as the Citadel one, which makes it a better choice for this particular task. So what I am literally going to do is load my brush up here with some of the sepia, and then I'm going to paint it on to the model. And one thing that is difficult about starting with a white undercoat, and if you've ever painted a model with a white undercoat, you can probably relate to this, is the fact that the paint, if it doesn't quite go into all of the recesses, it is glaringly obvious because you can see very clearly the white underneath, whereas if it's a dark black undercoat, you don't notice that, and that's part of sort of the natural shading of the model. So especially if I'm just doing a wash over white, there's going to be some white spots that are left over, and you might notice them as you're working. Like I'm starting on this one wing, and I might move on and look at it in a little bit and realize, oh, there's a couple white spots on there. So I might go back and touch those up as I'm working, but inevitably some are going to get through. And that's actually okay because I'm going to be painting this model with several layers of washes. So towards the end, they should all those little white spots should eventually get caught, and if they're not, I will spend some time right at the end touching those up. So these models, if you're looking at them, are clearly not the GW Harpies. I only recently added Harpies to my Beastman army because for a long while I was never motivated to get the GW ones. I don't particularly like them, and I'm really trying to move away from using metal models. I don't enjoy the fact that they get chipped up when I play my games. So I found these alternate models, and these are from Avatars of War, called the Harpies of Apocalypse. And they're a little pricey, but they are a resin kit, and each harpy is about 5 different pieces that you glue together. And as you can see, I've got this one and most of them on flying stands, and they actually seem quite secure on here. So I'm really pleased with this kit so far. The one thing I'm not super enthused about is the excessive boobage on the models. Something that GW does from time to time, and that has transferred to Avatars of War. But I'll deal with it. So I'm going to continue going here with this first wash of sepia, and I will check back in with you after this is dry and talk about the second step. Alright, so my harpy has dried here with the first wash of dark sepia being applied, and I am ready to move on to the next step, in which I'm going to be painting over a couple different parts of the model with some different colors. So first thing I'm going to do is paint the skin with a very thin layer of rotting flesh. So I'm going to take GW's rotting flesh, and I'm not sure if they make an equivalent to this anymore. I really haven't looked into it. And I'm going to be mixing it with probably 50-50 with thinner medium from Vallejo, and that is going to water it down because I do want it to be a very thin layer. So I'm going to go ahead and put some of these two things on my palette and mix them around. You'll notice that this paint that I'm applying, Rotting Flesh, it's sort of an off-white. It has a little bit of a greenish tint to it. And all the colors that I'm actually going to be applying right now are mostly some variety of off-white, because again, it's the washes that are really going to add the richness of color to the model because of the style that I'm applying. So we've got this mixed up in my palette. I'm just using sort of an old beat up brush to do this. And then I'm going to switch out for the actual brush that I'll be painting with, which in this case is a size 2 brush. And so I'm going to go over and apply a layer of this color to the skin. Very thin, and I'm going to leave the recesses of the model and sort of the areas where the shadows would catch without painting them. I want them to be nice and dark from the initial wash of the sepia. So as you can see, I'll move it a little closer. I am applying, like I said, a pretty thin layer as I go over. And you might be able to tell, I'm not sure if you can, like I was saying in the first part, that the initial wash isn't going to cover all of those little white spots in the recesses from the primer. But by the end of this process, those should all be covered up. So Rotting Flesh actually doesn't look very different from the result of just a white primer with the sepia wash. But what it does do, by applying a thin layer right now, gives me a more even surface to add color to with the next wash, and that's where you're really going to see the color of the skin coming through. So I'm going to go through and finish up. I'm just working on the legs here. I'll finish up applying this Rotting Flesh to the whole model in terms of its skin, and then I will come back and talk about the next color.